Hey guys, here we are with a special for our Attack Wing reviews on YouTube, and it's the Xindi Weapon Zero. Really hard to get hold of this one because I did leave it a little bit late in the purchasing of said item. However, I'm really impressed with what we've got here. This is the first ship for Attack Wing for the Xindi faction. So it's a new faction they bought in, and that's really impressive considering that we're now in sort of wave 24, 25 of this. It's been going for a number of years now, and they've decided to actually bring a new piece of the game in. This is a much larger miniature than we've seen before. It's not as big as your Borg Cube and your Deep Space Nine, but it is actually bigger than the Borg Tactical Cube, which they released earlier in the sequence. Very different miniature. So the box for it itself is I'll just kind of bring that in. It's just a little sort of standard cube box, pretty normal arrangement, very similar to what you had with the DS9 and the Borg Cube boxes, but it is a little bit smaller. But let's look at the ship itself. So featured in the finale of Season 3 of Enterprise in 0 Hour, it's the weapon that was designed to attack Earth and destroy Earth from the Xindi. Comes on this larger oversized base as well, which again is larger than the one we had for the Tactical Cube. So let's just pop it off from its oversized peg that you get with it as well, and take a look. So good spherical shape, unusually because it's a sphere. You've got the two sort of rotating axes pieces here with that sort of energy weapon focusing beam portal that you've got there. So it actually sits that way up. A lot of green detailing. My only challenge is that if you look at the image on the box, the green detailing does look a lot sharper. And in fact, the detail looks a lot sharper on the box image than it does on the real thing. So I was a little bit shocked by that. But I've got to say, detail-wise, every surface is different. It is a completely different pattern wherever you look. They've done a really good job of replicating the surface. It's a shame these two don't move around, but you know, hey, it's a plastic miniature to use in a tabletop war game. And there's not a great deal I can say about it. I think if you compare it, it looks very similar to a Borg sphere in the fact that it's green and grey. But overall, I'm quite impressed with it. It's a quite an impressive little ship as well. Stats on it are varied, and let's just got to remember which way this goes in on the peg because it is a little bit tricky to get this back in. There we go, got it. So just take a quick look at the stats on this, and then we're going to look at the cards. So you've got an attack of 6, you've got an agility of 0, a hull of 8, and a shield of 0. Your standard features are in fact the 4 normal ones. You've got your evade, your target lock, your scan, and your battle stations on there. Weapon 0, as we can see, if you turn it over, you'll see that you can have it as a Xindi weapon, and the stats are the same, but you do lose that battle stations option there. Only one firing arc as well, if you noted from the base, which is a forward one. Right, let's just pop that down there, and let's see if we can take a look at the cards. Okay, so let's start off and take a look at the Weapon 0 card. So first of all, we have Weapon 0 itself. So when defending during the roll defense dice step, you may roll 1 defense die for each damage or critical damage result rolled by the attacking ship. If you do so, place an auxiliary power token beside your ship. So as you can see from the stats, we have a 6 for attack, a 0 for agility. So there is no defense as the basic weapon on this ship. What this is saying is that if somebody does manage to actually hit you, you have the option that you can then defend against it. If you don't have any defense, anything to defend against, you don't need to, but it is going to mean you're going to be putting an auxiliary power token for every one of those damage or critical damage results. Quite useful. It means that your defense is determined by 1, a bit of a risk, and 2, what you are being hit with. So would you want to put this up against anything of a decent firepower, anything maybe your sort of flagship ships, a Borg or anything like that? Probably not, because I think you'll last maybe a round or 2 with these. You're not going to last very long, and you're going to run up so many auxiliary power tokens. It's going to be silly. There isn't a limit on the number of auxiliary power tokens you can put on here, but it is still going to be an interesting way to go if you choose to. Note we've got the new Xindi emblem on there as well. The ship costs 30 points, and it's of course it's a unique one. You've also got the options to put in attack, 3 weapons, and a crew upgrade as part of your weapon 0. If you choose to go for the generic version, what you are losing, as we said, is that battle stations action from your standard actions bar. You're also losing one of your weapon upgrades, and that brings you down to 28 points on the cost. But your stats, as you will notice, are exactly the same. So you've still got a 6, a 0, an 8, and a 0 on your stats. Movement wise, this whole kind of 1 to 4 thing seems to be a very, very generic at the moment. We've got a 1 reverse, which is good, but it is going to incur that auxiliary power token. The sharp 3 left and right, the hard left and right, again auxiliary power token, and then up at 4 points you're going to be looking at incurring that auxiliary power token to do that maneuver. You've got greens at 2 and 1, and a full range of maneuvers around the sort of 2 as well. So it's pretty standard maneuvers, nothing amazing there, not even a bank. What do I think? Pretty average. It's one of those ships that I think you're going to be using in a very specific scenario. You are maybe going to be playing purely with Enterprise era ships or TOS era ships, just because of what this has as a basic stat. As you'll see, the defense doesn't really get much better than you get with the generic ship. And remember, if you're using the Xindi Starship as a generic version, you are going to be losing that unique action, which will allow you to roll any defense dice against a damage or critical damage attack. So let's pop those away, and then we'll bring in our captain option. So as always, we've got the old generic version of the Xindi captain, which we get in there. We'll just pop him over there, and we've got Dolim. So Dolim is the insectoid. Sorry, he's not the insectoid. He is the insectoid captain. If your ship is not cloaked, disable all of your remaining shields and target a ship at range 1 to 2. This is not cloaked and has no active shields. Discard 1 crew upgrade on the target ship. Your ship has a captain skill of 1 until the end of the phase. Yeah, it's an interesting option. What we're seeing here is the option that if you can't be cloaked, you can have a pop at something that's close to range and take an upgrade off the ship. It's not a biggie. It is pretty much a given that you can just do it straight away, but you are going to turn that captain skill, which Dolim has a captain skill of 8, I'm going to be bringing it down to a 5, which is a massive bring it from an 8 down to a 0, which is a 1, sorry, which is a massive drop. I am having some sort of word block on this morning, I do apologise. You've also got the option to put your release action on there, and Dolim costs 5 points, which is where I was getting this point from. So as you can see, he's a pretty decent captain option. 8 as the first captain we're getting for the Xindi faction is a really cool thing. Right, let's look at your crew. So we've got Degra, who was the scientist who in fact helped the Enterprise to defeat and to find the weapon in the first place. So Degra, all of his Xindi weapon upgrades cost 1 less SP, 1 less squadron point, which is great. You have 2 options on your weapons anyway, as we'll come to. So they would cost 1 point less. I'll point that out when I get to them. When attacking during the declare target step, if your ship does not already have another ship target locked, you may discard this card to acquire a target lock on that ship within range 1 to 3 of the ship. Nice, because that means you can watch where people move around and then work out who you want to actually target. So that's a really cool little piece of kit that they've put in there. Only going to cost you 4 points. It is a discard, so it is going to be a one-use card, but it does mean that you are going to be able to look at how the game is playing out and then act on that, rather than having to kind of target lock and then see your ship, the ship that you've target locked, move out of range and not give you the opportunity you were hoping for. Okay, so Degra, nice little touch, especially the fact that he's going to mean that you spend a little less money on your upgrades, and then you're getting the second bonus. So he's probably worth it for 4 points to put in your crew. Definitely one I would consider. As we said, moving on to the weapon upgrades, you have 2 options with this one. We'll start with the lowest scoring one, or lowest costing one, which is rotating emitters, which is a cost of 4, and it has a range of only 1 though, so it's a very short range piece. It uses 4 attack die. Note that you are going to be dropping down from the 6 that you are using as the primary weapon attack, but That's because you disable this card and you can fire it in any direction using those 4 points. So you're not limited to that forward 90-degree firing arc that we've got on the base. Let's drop that back in there. So you're not limited to that arc. With this, you've got the ability to fire it in any direction, and the fact that it's a disable means that you can then re-enable it at some point in the future to be able to fire it wherever you want. So again, potentially quite useful in line with the Degra target lock, especially if you've got a ship that is close or looks like it's coming close, and then you could use this maybe as part of your attack to then attack it wherever it ends up. Nice move. So second option on your weapons is the Destructive Blast. 5 point use, 5 attack dice again. You're using 6 if you use the primary attack. It is a unique option as well. So 6 point cost. You discard this card to perform the attack. It targets all ships in a straight line up to range 3 from your ship. Perform 1 attack against each ship in that line. Each attack beyond the first is like a cumulative -1 attack die. So if you've got 5 attack die to begin with, you just mark a straight line from the ship. So if the ship is, say, here, then you're marking that line, might be just following this line on there. All the ships that are in a line that way, you would then fire at those. If there were 3 in the line, your first ship will be hit by 5, the second ship will be hit by 4, the third ship will be hit by 3. It is a discard, 1 use only, 5 attack dice, 4 and then 3 and then 2 and then 1, depending on how many ships there are in that line. Only used for the Xindi weapon. A massive new weapon that you can target things, but you are again looking at a very situational card. This is going to rely on you on maybe your 1, 2 or 3 opponents that you're facing off, all managing to get all of their ships in a perfect line. Yes, you've got the bases, so that might help. The bases will probably class as part of the ships, but again, it's a very, very chancy maneuver to get everything lined up that perfectly. Nice idea. I'm just not sure how effective that's going to be, but it is it's a big cost for a one-shot sort of chancer. Moving on to the tech upgrades. So we've only got tech and the elite to go. We have 2 tech upgrades. We'll start with self-destruct, which is a 5 point cost. Unique again. All ships within range 1 of your ship can be targeted with this one, and when you destroy your ship, each ship target suffers 1 damage and must discard a token that is beside it. So if it's got any of the 4 standard ones, your evade, your scan, your battle stations, or your target lock, they've got to get rid of 1 of those. But effectively, this is your last gasp, and hopefully you'll take something with you at the same time. But range 1, you've got to be very close. I know looking at things like rotating emitters, you're going to be wanting to be close with that anyway. But with this, you are hopefully going to take something with you as a last gasp. Subspace Vortex is your second option on tech with this one. So you discard this card to remove your ship from the play area and discard all tokens beside your ship except for auxiliary power tokens. Immediately place ship back in anywhere on the play area, not within range 1 to 3 of an enemy ship. You cannot attack during this round. You use this action. Again, used for Xindi ship, 6 point cost. Very similar to stuff we've had before, where it's like trans warp or temporal rift or whatever you want to call it, which you've seen on many ships before, where you can just transfer and move it off and put it back in. There's even things like the Picard maneuver that you've got with the Hathaway, where you're effectively doing that sort of that straight to warp and the straight out of warp jump, which makes it look like it's in 2 places at once. There's very, very similar things. This isn't a really big one. The big one I think here that we've seen is going to be your rotating emitters and your destructive blast are really the 2 big things I'm getting out of this pack. But a nice idea. It does seem that this pack is kind of suicidal in some respects, but hey, it's still a good pack. Final up is arming sequence. It is your 1 elite action that you've got with this pack, costing you 8 points. Again, unique. You place 1 mission token on this card during the activation phase of each subsequent round. Place 1 additional mission token, up to 3. While there are mission tokens on this card, you cannot perform any actions, only execute maneuvers at the speed of 1. When attacking with a destructive blast upgrade, there we go. So this is a card that is used in conjunction with this one. or your primary weapon during the roll attack dice step, you may discard this card to gain a number of attack dice equal to the number of mission tokens on this card. If you do so, you discard it. The upgrade can only be purchased for a Xindi weapon. So it's an 8-point cost for this elite action, which Degra can field. But imagine you can effectively go up to either starting your destructive blast off with a total of 8 dice, or you can start off and just hit one ship with a total of 9 dice from your primary weapon. So there's 2 options there that you've got to use this card, both of which give you one heck of a powerful attack, either to take several ships out in an 8, a 7, a 6, 5. You can effectively, you've got 8 attacks there that you could have, or you've got a 9 which can pretty much do some serious damage to everything, I think, from Deep Space Nine all the way down. So a really interesting little card, very, very different. The fact that it's used, and it actually says that it can be used in conjunction with the Destructive Blast one as well, is a really neat piece, because that's kind of the primary major weapon that we've got on this ship. So yeah, very, very interesting. As well, you do get a new additional rules card with this one, which just indicates where the Xindi fit in within the factions. So all the rules apply to them that apply to everybody else, and they fit between the Kazon and the Bajorans. So yeah, interesting, because you're probably going to have more ships in the Xindi than you do in the Kazon and the Bajoran. So I'm surprised they've knocked them down beyond 847. Well, beyond the Kazon. I would personally put them just somewhere between 472 and the Kazon, just on ability. But hey, not my choice. It's that card you get with it as well, because it's the first ship that you've had these with. And finally, you do also get a mission which is based on the Weapon Zero, the 0 hour mission, which sees a Federation fleet take on the Xindi fleet. At the moment, you'd have to kind of use independent ships or whatever fleet you wanted to use, because we've only got one Xindi ship, which is the one we're using, and the aim of the Xindi is to destroy the planet Earth. Partial success, I think, is if you manage to destroy the Earth, and full is if you destroy, there you go, you win if you destroy Earth. Alternative, you win if you destroy all of the Federation players' ships and still have one ship left in the play area, and the Federation players just to destroy all the Xindi ships. Looks like, to be able to play this properly, you're going to have to wait a while before the Xindi pack comes in and we see some more ships. But until then, I hope you've enjoyed this one. I'm really looking forward to getting to grips with this, with the Xindi Sphere Weapon Zero, and having a good play with it. But until then, I shall see you later, when hopefully we'll be talking about Wave 24 and maybe even Wave 25. As always, please subscribe to the channel. You can now listen to us on our podcast on SoundCloud or iTunes, and a variety of other platforms. And we shall talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Transfer complete.